He's right now the managing partner of Prudentia Partners. He has argued immensely in different forums such as Supreme Court, High Court, Tribunals, TDSAT, APTEL, DRAT also. He's argued matters about services, education, electricity, consumer disputes, civil, criminal, arbitration, a lot of things. He's also worked with ASG Ms. Shri P.S. Narasimha, and he's also helped in litigation regarding matters of national importance and critical legal issues that have been there. He's also been part of the mediation team between BCCI and state critical cricket associations. He's implemented new reforms, and he's also, of course, which of course was suggested by the Justice Lodha Committee as well. And of course, he's represented very big clients such as DMRC, Joy Lucas, JK Siemens, Videocon, etc. So thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. Please take over the rise, and I mean, it's yours. The floor is yours. Yeah.
Thank you, Ashaawari, for such an outstanding introduction. And I wish all the viewers and you a very happy Vijayadashmi. See, today's topic, as we all know, that we are here to discuss about the whole scenario of gaming and online gaming in India, and to discuss how this whole field is in vacuum as of today. And strictly speaking, there is no regulation to regulate this. And we will in course discuss why it is essential today to regulate this sphere, and why am I arguing that there is no regulation today. When we say gaming and online gaming, we of course are referring to gambling, betting, or wagering activities, which we see today because of the advent in the technology are growing day by day. So just for an example, a company which just started a couple of years back had a revenue of around 9,000 crores last year, and today it has crossed 35,000 crores, which is involved into fantasy cricket, and which is one of the lead sponsors of the Indian Premier League, which is happening right now in Dubai at this moment. So the whole debate today is why it is important to regulate, and what are the vacuums in law which needs to be filled. In order to understand this, first of all, we should understand what is the present regime which regulates gambling or gaming or online gaming or betting, and we will get into the definitions of these terms as it exists in different statutes in India. So the lead legislation so far as this is concerned is the Public Gambling Act of 1867. As we see that this is an 1867 law, this is absolutely based on Victorian philosophy. And at that point in time, like Indians or other countries like USA or Russia or China, UK, at that point in time, they also believed that it is immoral to get involved in gambling. And that is why this kind of law was brought, which defines a gambling house, what is a gambling house and how it is to be regulated, and what are the activities which are banned under that house. And if some sort of gambling activity is found in that house, who is to be punished? What is the tenure of punishment? What will be the effect if somebody is found gambling in public premises or public places? All these things were covered under that statute. But India, so far as India is concerned, there has been no amendment or change brought in that statute. UK, although has time and again brought changes, and by the UK Gambling Act 2005, they have recognized gambling activities, and they have regulated it and realized that it cannot be done away with. Now, so far as our constitution is concerned, there are 3 entries in 7th schedule with which we are concerned today. In list 1, there's entry 40. In list 2, there are entries 34 and 62. So entry 40 of list 1 is confined to lotteries, and entry 34 and 62 talks of gambling. So if you look at these entries, it becomes established fact that state governments, because India is a quasi-federal structure, and the power is divided for legislation between the union on the one hand and the state legislature on the other hand. So far as gambling is concerned, it has been, without a doubt, the power has been given to the state governments. Now, what is the reason for that? If at all we have to understand, we'll need to look at the Constituent Assembly debates where these entries were discussed. So when entry 34 and entry 62 were being discussed in the Constituent Assembly debates, Constituent Assembly, there was a huge opposition by certain members who believed that gambling at all should not be brought under any list. In fact, they were of the view that this is such an immoral activity that it should not be made part of the constitution. Against which Dr. Ambedkar stood, and he argued that if at all you do not bring gambling as an activity under any of the lists in 7th schedule of the constitution, it will by de facto get into entry 97 of list 1, which is for residuary powers. Residuary powers, for those viewers who don't know, are the powers which are not given either to the state or the union, or they are not mentioned in the list 3, which is the concurrent list of 7th schedule. So Dr. Ambedkar argued in the Constituent Assembly that if you do not put gambling in any of the lists in the 7th schedule, then it itself will become unregulated, because then even the states would not be able to prohibit such activities. So what I'm trying to explain here is that gambling as an entry under the constitution was not brought to regulate, but the debates are very clear and categorical that these entries were brought to prohibit gambling as an activity. But as we will see, that now there are certain states which have made things very legal. They have brought the license Raj, because after which consequentially private entities can get a license in these states and get indulged in all sort of gambling or casino activities. Now, there are 3 states, Goa, Daman and Diu, and Sikkim, which have actually legalized it, and a lot of activities are happening. And if you'll see the state legislation as it has been formulated by these states, you will see that the state is taking a large revenue for registration itself. So it's for some of the, amongst these 3, in certain examples, the license fee is 14 crores, 15 crores. So for license itself, an entity needs to give 14 crores, 15 crores in order to get indulged itself into these activities. So this by itself makes it very clear that the kind of money an entity intends to earn and the kind of revenue an entity would generate after getting into these activities is evident from the fact itself that the amount of money the state government is charging for granting the license. Now, apart from this, the legislation, as we've seen, that has been left behind, and the government of India has not taken steps to formulate new legislations. Another problem which arose with the advent of technology is that initially gambling was confined to physical locations in physical forms. So the extent of the activity was confined not only in terms of the number of people who participated, but also in terms of the revenue which was involved. A recent data of FICCI says that in cricket itself, in cricket alone, the official data of FICCI says that in cricket alone, betting of approximately 30,000 crore takes place in a year in India itself. So that is the number we are talking. And this 30,000 crore is unregulated, hence it is absolutely black money. So not a single penny of this money goes into the revenue of the government. So it's unregulated. Now, when such amount of money is being spent either by the losing side or by the winning side, and transactions of such amount are happening, it actually raises a bell. Where is this money going? What kind of activities are being promoted by this money, which this kind of large revenue which is being generated? We've already seen instances of spot fixing and match fixing which were related to gambling. It was alleged by certain agencies that there are certain mafias who are indulged in spot fixing. They fix the match and then they raise the level of that gambling by creating certain circumstances in the match that the viewers would tend to believe that team A is about to win. But in the last few overs, they will change the match. And such instances have been highlighted across the world. Teams like South Africa, Sri Lanka, India, and Pakistan, they have all been part of such allegations. Now, the only problem was in most of those cases that most of those allegations were not being proved, and they remained only as allegations. So in this regard, so far as India is concerned, the difficulty is that we have very strict laws so far as privacy is concerned, so far as investigation is concerned. It's in India, it's not very normal that the police may tap somebody's phone and use it as an evidence. So all these mechanisms also need to be brought. Now, let's first of all discuss what gambling is, and what are the exceptions which are provided under law where gambling is permitted, and how is this affecting? So the first legislation which I see which talks about betting or gambling is the Finance Act of 1994, which under section 65B subclause 15 says that betting or gambling means putting on stake something of value, particularly money, with consciousness of risk and hope gain on the outcome of a game or a contest, whose result may be determined by chance or accident, or on the likelihood of anything occurring or not occurring. So if you look at this definition, it's very clear that we are talking about an activity where money or some sort of revenue is being put on the outcome which is uncertain. Now, when we talk about the Indian legislation, it tries to distinguish these activities in two parts. It says that the games can be divided in two categories: games of chance and games of skill. And courts in several cases have interpreted that games of chance have to be strictly prohibited, but games of skill may go on. And that is why you will see that there are so many apps these days: Rummy Circle, Rummy Legal, Dreams 11, and all these activities, which they argue that these are not games of chance, but these have become games of skill. Now let's take an example first of all of Dream 11, which is a predominant agency right now in this activity. So I will just in a minute or so try to explain you how it works. So if you, let's say if you register yourself on Dream 11 app, first of all I should tell you that this app is not available on Google apps or any other Android app or Apple App Store, because it violates their policies so far as betting and gambling is concerned. So it is a recognized fact that Google or Apple and these companies, they realize that these activities are in some way or the other a form of betting and gambling, and that is why these apps are not provided. So you must have read in news recently that Zomato, Paytm, or Swiggy were removed from these app stores because they were also promoting certain kind of cashbacks to customers after asking certain questions related to the IPL matches which are going on. Then they gave an undertaking to Google Play Store that we will remove such activities, and they were brought back. So the Google itself realizes that Dream11 is an app which is indulged into some sort of betting and gambling activity. Now let's look at the functioning of Dream11. What happens is you register on the app, you become a member, and then you're given options of different pools of matches. So the pools may vary. There are pools as big as 20 crore, 2 crore. Then there are pools as big as 50 lakhs, 10 lakhs. And then the number of participants in those pools are limited. So let's take an example that there's a pool which capacity is 10,000 rupees and the number of participants is limited to 3 people. So now these 3 people can formulate a team of their own. How will they formulate team of their own is there's a match of team A versus team B. So there are 22 players involved into it. So the option of 22 players will be given to you and you will be asked to formulate your own team. So you will take 5 players from team A, 5 players from team B, and accordingly formulate your team. And depending upon the performance of those players, you will be given fantasy scores. And depending upon that fantasy scores, you will be awarded your money. So in every pool, the first thing is that Dream11 takes 20% of the table as its fee. So if the pool was of 10,000 rupees, 2,000 goes to Dream11 straight away. Now, from the remaining 8,000 rupees which is left on the pool, according to your fantasy score which your player has scored, you will get the amount. Now, obviously, it can be argued that this is a game of skill. A customer, before formulating his team, conducts a proper research on a player, how he has been performing in this season, how has been his batting average, how is his form, whether he will play in the match or not. And depending upon these skill sets, you pick your player and that player may win, may lose. But ultimately, if you see, isn't it not a game of chance instead of skill? Because I may say that I have picked Mr. X who has been in extraordinary form this season. But whether Mr. X will perform that day or not, is it my skill? It is not. Or I'll give you another example. Mr. X might be in great form. He might be performing well, but he may get run out because of the mistake committed by another player, which is a chance. So ultimately, there is an element of chance also involved, even if it is established that this is a game of skill. So first problem is that in all these activities which we have discussed, Rummy Circle or Dream11 or Rummy Legal, the eventuality of chance cannot be strictly taken away. So it cannot be in black and white be said that this is only a game of skill and there is no chance that an uncertainty is allowed or may happen. In this event, there's an important case which I would like to refer. There's M.J. Sivani by the Supreme Court, the Honorable Supreme Court, where there was a Madras Act, there's a Mysore Police Act, under which there was a prohibition brought for the online video games. Now, obviously, this was challenged. It was challenged because the petitioners, they argued that this video game is a game of skill and there is no question of chance. And hence, if the legislature thinks that this is violating the gambling laws in India, it is wrong. The High Court ruled against them. When the matter came up to Supreme Court, the Supreme Court in conclusion held that, all right, we agree with you that this is a game of skill. But because this is being played online, and then there's a possibility that the creators or the organizers of this game may change certain technical combinations and which may lead for you to win or lose. So they have a say, and that is why you cannot as such say that this is a game of skill. So for an online video game, for which of course if a player practices more, he will excel more in the game, the Supreme Court said that no, we cannot say that this is a plain game of skill. So if that analogy is to be applied in Rummy Circle or Rummy Legal or Dream11, then they will also become a game of chance, not a game of skill. So this is the first problem. Now there's another regime in India which is
Sir, can you just repeat the name of the case law?
M.J. Sivani.
MJ Sevani. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Continue.
Yeah. So then there's another regime in India, which is horse trading. So from the very beginning, horse trading has been accepted as a legal activity in this country. Now, what happened is that another case in Tamil Nadu came up to Supreme Court, where certain prohibitions were brought in a certain club which was indulged into horse trading. And a 5-judge bench of the Supreme Court in Dr. R.K. Lakshmanan versus State of Tamil Nadu uh, checked the constitutional validity of this activity, and at the end said that this is a game of skill. But even after saying that this is a game of skill, the Supreme Court formulated certain regulations. What kind of regulations were these? The Supreme Court said that that this horse trading, the wagering or betting on horse racing can be done only on the turf of the club. That the club will come up with certain regulations which will keep in mind that anonymous or Benami people are not playing these games. So these should be registered members of the club, and they should come, and all the betting and wagering will happen on the turf of the club. Now, if that analogy is seen of the Supreme Court, which recognized horse trading as a game of skill, but even then put certain restrictions and directed the clubs to come up with certain guidelines to restrict and avoid the chances of betting and gambling. So that also needs to be done in all these online apps. Some kind of corporate social responsibility should be brought. Unless a regulator or a body is created which looks into the activity or the revenues generated by these companies, how will we get to know that who are the players who are involved, who are the people who are playing these games, what is the kind of revenue which the company is generating, how much of that revenue the company is giving into taxes, what part of the revenue the company is spending as a part of corporate social responsibility. So all these things need to be checked. Another problem is there's a common word which we all have heard called satta. So this satta has been a part of the Indian tradition for several years now, and it is being done and everybody knows it. But the only problem is that satta is illegal. So if you will see that some people are indulged into some kind of betting in the form of satta, the police will raid, will make cases against these people into certain laws, as we've discussed. But at the same time, when the same thing is being done online, it becomes a game of skill, and there is no regulation, because your Public Gaming Act 1867 is such an old legislation that it does not take care of the online activities. So same activity, when being done in the physical sphere, is an illegal activity. At the same time, the same activity, when being done online, becomes legal. So there are two doctrines, and these doctrines are very, very essential for us to understand this whole problem. There's a Latin term which is called malum in se, and the counterpart of this term is malum in prohibitum. So what malum in se means is that there are few things which are inherently wrong, which if you are committing, it will be presumed that this is against morality, or this is illegal, or you will be punished. And then there are certain activities which are malum in prohibitum. These are the activities which are expressly prohibited in law. So the problem here is that, you see, the physical activity becomes malum in prohibitum, although it is malum in se as well, because obviously we in terms of the morality and in terms of the moral philosophies, you see, betting and gambling has not been recognized as a very good activity. It is a societal stigma. People don't very frankly say that I'm indulged in betting, I'm a sattebaj. So anybody cannot proudly say that I made 20 crores this IPL season, or I made 15 lakhs in the horse racing. So it is still a societal stigma. So there is a malum in se factor involved already, but in the physical activities, it is malum in prohibitum also. So that is why it becomes an offense when you're doing satta in the physical world. But as soon as you come online, the malum in se exists, but because the malum in prohibitum is lacking, that there is no express prohibition in terms of law so far as the online gambling is concerned, this goes on. So this is a problem. Another problem which I would want to discuss is a doctrine called res extra commercium. So now what happens is that the Prize Competition Act 1957 was brought by the Maharashtra government, which was challenged in a very famous case, RMDC Chamar Bagwala. So what happened in RMDC? The court went into testing the constitutional validity of the enactment which was brought, and the court subsequently, there were two cases which were filed, and both these cases were decided in at the same time on the same day, and the court at the end held that yeah, some portion of this enactment is unconstitutional. So during the arguments, it was raised as an argument that this gambling as an activity, or betting as an activity, or prize competitions as an activity are also protected under Article 19 for freedom of trade, where the Supreme Court tried to distinguish and said that yes, you may be right, but then there are certain activities which are res extra commercium, for which we cannot say that you can take the shelter of freedom of trade. So this is that kind of activity. So RMDC settled the law so far as India is concerned in terms of res extra commercium, but then there are certain problems with that also. The two problems which I see is that the Prevention of Money Laundering Act brought an amendment in 2013 which recognized gambling as a trade, as a business. Why I am saying is that under section 2 clause 1 subclause SA, it said that a person carrying on a designated business or profession to include a person carrying on activities for playing games of chance for cash or kind, and include such activities associated with casinos. So the moment Prevention of Money Laundering Act brings an amendment and recognizes these activities as a business activity and brings under its ambit the revenues generated by these activities, how does it remain res extra commercium anymore? So in effect, the doctrine created by the Supreme Court, which says that certain activities are res extra commercium, but because of the legislation developments, see, the intention of the government in bringing these activities under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act is very pious. There is no doubt about it. But the problem is that the moment you recognize this as a trade, then you cannot let it be unregulated. Then you will have to come up with certain mechanisms which make it essential to regulate these trades. Now, then apart from whatever we have discussed so far, there's a great debate in the Indian scenario of revenue versus morality. So there's a big section of the society which still believes that these gambling or betting or wagering agreements are immoral and they should be stopped. But at the same time, it is an accepted fact that these activities are creating huge revenues, and that is why certain state governments, I'll just give you an example of Goa. So when in 1976 Goa brought the first legislation recognizing gambling, it was brought to regulate these activities. But an amendment in the 1992 in the state legislation will show that initially the legislation which was brought to regulate certain activities changed into a legislation which was to promote these activities, because the state government realized by 1992 that this is a great opportunity in order to generate revenues. I'll just give you an example that in 2014, the revenue generated by casinos in Goa was 142 crores to the state government itself. So in a country where the sports budget is merely 1700 crore for the whole country, in that country, a small state like Goa generates a revenue of 142 crores by way of taxes only from casinos. Then you can imagine that if these activities are openly or regulated and are being provided by all the state governments, what kind of revenue it can generate. Now, in the morality and revenue argument, another argument comes up is that even if the state government or the government does not takes any action to control these activities, then also we understand and we have understood this by way of experience that these activities would not stop. You will see from the history, you will see the epics like Mahabharata and Ramayana, or the Purans, or the Smritis, or the Arthashastra written by Kautilya. They have all recognized that gambling and betting has existed in this country from time immemorial. So it will go on. So if you leave it unregulated, it is a great loss to the revenue of the government. So it is better that you regulate it so that the tax comes to the public exchequer. At the same time, people who are doing it illegally will then get under a license regime and will be able to do it legally. So a lot of problems will then vanish. Problems like your black money. So a lot of black money is shifts hands in all these betting games. So if these are regulated and the government makes it essential that whoever is being involved in all these activities will have to get himself registered with a club, and the club will keep up a regular revenue as to what is the amount or quantity a person is playing, what is the amount or quantity a person is spending. So all these things can be regulated. Now, apart from this, there's one important thing which needs to be discussed is the Law Commission report of 2018. So this Law Commission report of 2018 is not out of context. What happened is that around 2011, the advent of IPL happened in 2008. So in the first 3 years, there were a lot of news and public outcry and media outcry made that most of these games are being fixed and a lot of people are involved into certain illegal activities. And the Supreme Court in 2011 took concern of this problem. And first of all, it appointed a Mudgal committee. So the job of the Mudgal committee was to frame certain references and to bring out the problems which exist in the era of cricket. So Mudgal committee for the first time actually recommended that betting should be legalized in India so far as cricket is concerned. And it said that all right, we say that betting should be legalized in India because we've understood after doing some research and after meeting different people and players and all those people who are involved into these activities, we have understood that this is a menace which cannot be taken away from the society. It will exist. So if there's a problem which will exist in the society, you do whatever, then it is better to legalize and regulate it. At the same time, Mudgal committee said that all these players and their agents should be registered with the BCCI. The agents should not be allowed to go along with the players on the foreign trips when the players go to play these matches. The players should not at all be related to the franchise companies who are in association with the BCCIs. It also directed to regulate the post-match parties where certain outsiders used to visit the dressing room of these players. It said that you formulate a committee of certain legendary players like Sachin Tendulkar, Rahul Dravid, VVS Lakshman, whose integrity is unquestionable, and they should be made to talk to these youngster players and they should make them aware about the menace of betting and gambling in this country. And Another very important thing which Mudgal committee said is that investigative agencies' power should be enhanced. So we were just discussing a few minutes back that there's a problem that phone tapping cannot be done. There's a problem that how do you prove that betting was being performed, or a spot fixing happened, or a match fixing happened. So investigating agency, a specialized investigating agency should be formulated, which should be given certain powers. Based on this report, the Supreme Court formulated a Lodha committee which gave its recommendations. Apart from that, the Supreme Court, in one of its orders, there were a series of orders passed in this case. In one of the orders, the Supreme Court requested the Law Commission to look into the issue and formulate a report. So in July 2018, the Law Commission under the former Supreme Court Judge Justice B.S. Chauhan came up with a report which also recommended that betting should be legalized. So what are the considerations which the Law Commission took into while saying that betting should be legalized is that it first of all looked into the historical perspective, that how betting and gambling was looked into the Indian society in the history, in the medieval history, in the ancient history. So it took certain phrases from Vedas and Smritis and Purans and certain political documents like Arthashastra, which showed that betting and gambling has existed in this society. Then it looked at several other definitions which exist across the world, like in UK or USA or our Public Gambling Act of 1867. And then it tried to distinguish between a game of chance and game of skill. And it said that although we agree that game of skill also cannot be absolutely segregated from the concept of chance, so there will definitely remain some element of chance, but we can definitely categorize these games into two categories, games of skill and games of chance. So far as games of chance is concerned, the Law Commission said that no, we say that they should be prohibited and banned, but so far as games of skill is concerned, they should be regulated and legalized. Now, after the Law Commission's report, so far I have not found anything or any document which says that the government is working on this aspect. But there was an interesting private bill came, which was in 2018 called Online Gaming and Prevention of Fraud Bill. Unfortunately, this bill lapsed and it could not be proceeded further. There's an interesting thing is that when we look at the regulators of these sports activities, there are no regulators in this country, but there are certain bodies like All India Gaming Federation or Indian Federation of Sports and Gaming called AIGF, IFSG. So these bodies have also recommended to the government. In fact, there's a letter of 2019 written by the AIGF to the Prime Minister, which said that we demand that ED investigation and prompt action against offshore betting websites that are illegally offering websites to Indian citizens and accepting bets from India in contravention of the Information Technology Act and Foreign Exchange Management Act. So these bodies also, they understand that there are certain foreign companies or foreign websites which have come into existence, and because there is no regulation in this country which can in accordance to which a prompt action can be taken against this, so the AIGF, the federation, says that all right, you don't have a direct regulator, but you have your FEMA, you have your Information Technology Act. Under these ages also you can grab their collars and make them stop such activities. But that recommendation of the AIGF has still not been acted upon by the government. And there's one important thing which I must discuss before we come to an end to this session, is that the betting or gambling activities have an inherent problem of Contract Act also. So there are two provisions in the Contract Act. First is Section 23 and second is Section 30. We'll first of all talk about Section 23, which talks about certain agreements which are against the public policy. Now the problem here is that we'll see that there are several cases where the Supreme Court or different high courts have tried to define what is public policy. But in every case, the conclusion has come up that this term public policy cannot be defined in a straitjacket formula, but it will have to be seen in the facts and circumstances of each and every case. But there's a provision in the Contract Act which says that certain agreements which are against the public policy cannot be valid agreements. Now, if there is no regulation, if there is no law, and there is a strong belief in certain section of the people from the day of the inception of the Constitution, from the Constituent Assembly debates till now, there's a section in the society which believes that these things or these activities should stop. So then the question will arise whether this is against the public policy or not. Another problem under the Contract Act is Section 30, which makes all the wagering acts or wagering agreements void. So interestingly, what may happen because of this is that I may enter into a casino, I may play, I may win a certain amount, and the moment I ask my money from the casino may say, no boss, we are not giving. And if I say that there was an agreement, I bought a ticket, and these are certain terms and conditions which are mentioned in the casino for playing this game, and then the casino owner may say that, look, Section 30 of the Contract Act protects me. This agreement was void. I am not liable to pay any money to you. So this is an important effect, that there's a legislation which we are talking about regulations, but there's a legislation which expressly prohibits wagering agreements, which says that any agreement made for wagering is void ab initio. So then when you want to come with a regulation, so first of all, you will have to bring in certain changes under the Contract Act or certain other regulations, as we've discussed under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act or under the FEMA regime, which will first of all set the standard. Here the problem is that as and when the government realizes that there is certain change required, they make and bring an amendment in a certain legislation without understanding that unless and until a streamlined legislation is brought on this issue, certain contradictions and contrary provisions will keep arising between the statutes. So I think, Ashaawari, we should open the forum for questions if somebody has some questions.
Yeah, I'll just quickly look at so I have one question here. Praveen has asked that, sir, since you said the performance of a cricketer on a particular day is largely based on chance, so would you contend that betting on horse racing is also a game of chance, contrary to the case law that you mentioned?
It is actually an interesting question, and I think, Praveen, I have answered this during my talk, but still I will. It's an interesting question. See, when I was discussing Dr. R.K. Lakshmanan and the whole horse racing event, then also I had said that even if you say that it is a game of skill, then also the element of chance cannot be removed. And that is why I say that this distinction of the game of skill and game of chance cannot be made. So on a particular day, the horse is not well, or the best horse amongst all the horses was not well, or there was some problem in the track and it fell in that problem. So all these things will exist. See, Jallikattu, we remember the example. Or there are certain sports activities in different states. You will see where bullfighting happens, buffalo fighting happens, hen fighting happens, or even in kushti and kabaddi also. So there also these arguments can be brought up, that I know that this certain Pahalwan has been winning all the kushti competitions which he has fought in the last 3 years. So it is not a matter of chance, but it is skill. It is his skill because of which he has been winning. That on particular day, when you bet on him, there might be a certain problem with his health, or the other player may become well. And even if it is a skill, let's say that it's a game of skill, then whose skill? The Pahalwan's skill, Virat Kohli's skill, or your skill? What is your skill involved into it? Apart from taking a chance that on 23rd of October 2020 between Mumbai and Bangalore, Mr. X will play best because he has been in good performance. Apart from this, what other skill are you applying into it? For example, let's take competitions like Kaun Banega Crorepati. There, a question is given, 4 answers are given. Depending upon your knowledge, you pick one option. And if that option is correct, you're given money. That is purely a game of skill. But to say that Mr. X will take 5 wickets and hence I will win 50,000 because per wicket cost is 10,000 and you spend 7,000 on that bet is merely a game of chance. It's not a game of skill. I would not believe it.
Does UP and Haryana have the legislation on gambling?
No.
No. Okay. If we develop an app for playing Teen Patti just for entertainment, does it fall under gambling?
Yes.
Okay.
It
Explain
does, and
why.
it has. I'm sorry, it has already been discussed. There have been cases where the Supreme Court, while looking at not the constitutional validity, but the legality of certain game like Rummy Circle or all these games, it said that it is a matter of skill because you will have to remember the fall of cards. And you will have to keep in mind the sequence of the fall of cards, and accordingly you can win the bet or you can take the prize money, and that is why it's a game of skill. Now, the moment you say that if you develop an app for playing Teen Patti just for entertainment, does it fall under gambling or not? There are 2 answers to that. First is that online things are unregulated, as we've already discussed. So whatever is being done online, and the moment you say it is only for entertainment, so the money aspect is not involved. So gambling is out of question. Because gambling comes into question only if there is a wage or money or bet involved into it. But if you're playing a game merely for entertainment and there is no bet or money or wager involved into it, then how do you call it gambling? It is not. So whether you win or you don't win, you have nothing to lose on the table. So it is not gambling, because as we've seen in the definition of the Finance Act, as we discussed, or you look at the normal Oxford Dictionary of gambling, is where a bait of money is put on the happening of an event which is uncertain, which may happen in any direction. So the first condition of bait of money itself is missing the moment you say just for entertainment. And hence I don't think that it will fall under gambling. Can I name my Teen Patti app with the word casino in it, even if I am operating from Uttar Pradesh? See, I don't think that there's a legislation in Uttar Pradesh so far as this point is concerned. So you will have to check at the legality.
Vikash, so what about casinos in America? Like, how does that work? I mean, like in Vegas.
They have legislations. Interestingly, before 1992, in fact, even today, what happens in Goa is it's a very interesting part. So we all know that there are certain treaties which says that the territorial laws of any country will apply only up to 12 nautical miles under the sea. So, interestingly, what they do is they take people on cruises and they take them beyond 12 nautical miles under the sea. And then they do all these activities. And they say that it is not prohibited because we are not in the territory of India. So, but as you're giving examples of UK and all, UK, some of
US
the states,
mostly. I mean, like Las Vegas.
So those states have very strict regulations. That is why you will see that people across the world go to Las Vegas to play these games. In India, you will see Las Vegas of India is Goa today. And the legislation in India, the most advanced legislation so far as gambling or casino is concerned, is in Goa. So Goa, that's why I'm saying that an amendment in 1992 was brought in Goa only because the state government realized that a lot of tourists are coming and they are interested, and if we legalize and regulate it, it may end up helping us in generating revenue. And that is why in the year 2014, as I gave you the FICCI data, that they have generated 142 crores only from casinos. So then there are certain other activities as well.
So you're saying, what you're essentially telling us is that if it's going to happen, should do it in like it should be regulated, and that like we should try to get the best out of it.
Of course,
I mean,
if you cannot stop something, see, either there are 2-3 steps of doing things. Either you should be that malum in res and malum in prohibitum. So if you've accepted it as malum in res, then you eradicate it. But the problem is that this cannot be eradicated from the society. Do you think that small bettings and sattas on cricket matches or kushtis or hen fighting or bull fighting will stop in this country? It won't. It will keep on happening. So all I am saying is that if these activities cannot be stopped altogether, then why don't you regulate it? The moment you regulate it, one, that the government will earn revenues out of it. Two, that the black money which is being involved in all these activities, that curb will go away. Because the moment you regulate, every penny will then become accounted. So a lot of problems will be solved.
Like in Calcutta, we have horse racing.
Yeah,
which
there
happens...
are 5 clubs in this country. Calcutta is one of them. So these are recognized facts, and it has been accepted in case laws also that this is a game of skill. But you see, in horse racing also, the example which you are giving, Ashaawari, let's say I am sitting in Delhi, I cannot participate in that horse racing.
You can do it on the phone with me. You can say.
That's why I'm saying, please understand.
I'm sitting there, and you're calling me and telling me, 8 number घोड़ा अगर जीतेगा तो मुझे पैसे चाहिए.
The distinction is that's why I'm saying the betting happens on the turf. So if at all you want to bet, you will have to contact somebody who is on the turf.
I am on the turf.
That's why I'm saying. So there is some sort of regulation already in existence. So why do you think that this element of betting will happen only on the turf is there? Because every single money which is being involved in that betting is being accounted for. That the club is responsible and will give in detail that this much of amount was betted, and this individual has got this money, this individual has got this money, this individual has got this money. That is the effect of bringing a regulator. This is why precisely I am saying that you must regulate.
Okay. So you're saying that we should do it, but of course with regulation.
If you cannot stop something, then you will have to, of course, regulate it.
Acha, then somebody asked, what is the Sahana has asked, what is the name of the legislation that regulates betting in Goa?
I'll have to see. There's a 1976 regulation which was amended in 1992, and I have not jotted down the exact name of it. It's already available on internet. You can take the name. I remember the years, although 1976 and amendment of 1992. So please check it.
Amandeep has again, can I run advertisements
on my Teen Patti app, paid only for entertainment? Also, if we give ledgers to players to settle their accounts offline, presumably, is it illegal? Can you unmute Amandeep, and can he explain me this question?
Amandeep, right?
Yeah.
Allowed to talk. Yeah.
Amandeep Chahal.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, please, Amandeep, tell me.
Amandeep is muted.
Amandeep, you will have to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. Tell me.
Yeah, okay. So what basically I'm trying to ask is that we develop an app and in which we let them play Teen Patti.
All right.
And as a part of the app, the players, we are asking them to maintain, we are making them maintain their ledger, that how much player A has won or player B has bet, or basically the winning ledger.
All right.
And that's about it. There is no exchange of money or anything. Will that aspect of my app be considered illegal?
Of course it will. I mean, see, you will come under the regulation, because the moment you're saying that you're keeping accounts as to who won how much, that itself shows that it's not merely for entertainment. That you definitely intend to switch monies, if not online, then offline. Because if you don't intend to switch monies, why would you maintain a ledger for players? Please understand. An entertainment game generally would be played then and there, and the game ends.
Okay. All right. Thank
Yeah.
you. And can we run
I
advertisements
think
on these
I
apps
think
which
on
are just?
advertisement there's already a guideline which has come, and that is why advertisements are being done by all these apps, Rummy Circle, Rummy Legal, and all of these. So there's a guideline which has come by the government, and which has given certain standards. And if you follow those standards, see, the only standards which we are talking about is a disclosure of revenues earned and the taxes which you have to pay. So the moment you agree to those, you can run advertisements. So I'm not saying that Dream 11 or Rummy Circle or Rummy Legal, they don't pay taxes to the government. They definitely pay taxes on the revenues earned. But all I am saying is that stricter measures should be brought and a proper regulation should come into existence.
Okay, Mr. Shukla, taking back my point to the ledger, if we just mention it as points there, that this many points that person has won, instead of writing in INR.
I think it will become legal provided you follow those instructions which are in the guidelines, that you will take tab of the revenue generated and you will pay taxes if at all you switch monies. Because the Dream 11 example which we've discussed in detail also is about points only. What they do is that they create fantasy points. They don't say that this much run has been made by a batsman or this much wicket has been taken. They have created criteria according to which a player would get certain fantasy points. So whichever team which you've selected in all gets the highest fantasy points wins. So this is already in action, I think.
But there is no money involved in this.
No, the problem then would be,
So
see,
it's just
your voice is breaking.
Maintaining points, and that's
Amandeep, your
about
voice is
it.
breaking.
Your voice is breaking, Amandeep. I can't hear. Yes, I can. Tell me. I think if I've understood your question is that you're saying that only
Am I
by
audible now?
maintaining ledgers. Yeah, you are. You are. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
Please go on.
Yeah. So no, sorry, I didn't get you. The connection broke. So
yeah, I think your question was that merely maintaining ledger and in reality not switching monies, what will be the impact of this?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, all right. See, please look at the guideline which I am discussing. I think it is by the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, and it's available on the website. I had checked it for a client, and these guidelines, they give you certain terms and conditions. So you will have to first of all fulfill those terms and conditions and submit a form. After submitting that form, you can run your advertisements. So I think there must be a column of non-revenue generation, some sort of. So you can fill that form and you will become eligible for advertisement so far as your app is concerned.
Okay. To start an online gaming company, you don't require any license per se, or do you?
I think you should please type your question.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear a word of it.
Type in the Q&A.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
There's a problem with the connection.
Yeah, it looks like. See, there's one question by one Mr. Jagannath who says that the state of Andhra Pradesh has banned the online gambling, but other states are not doing that. Is why? See, the whole idea of the separation of power and the whole idea of bringing 3 different lists in the constitution is because it gives certain powers to the state governments on one hand and the union on the other hand to take decisions depending upon the prevailing conditions and circumstances in a particular state government. So the state of Andhra Pradesh, as a matter of policy, has decided to ban online gaming or online gambling. But the other states have still not realized that there's a need for such an activity, and hence they have not done. It's a matter of policy which varies from different state to state. There are X number of examples. The most interesting example which I can give you is of anticipatory bails. So apart from last couple of years, anticipatory bail, which is a part of the CRPC, was as a matter of practice not a part of the procedural structure in a state as big as Uttar Pradesh. So in Uttar Pradesh, the state had brought an amendment because of which anticipatory bails were not available to people, which has now been amended and anticipatory bails are available. But my point is that these are state government's prerogative to decide what would be their state's policy, and Andhra Pradesh has taken a decision. Similarly, you can say that Goa, Sikkim, Daman and Diu, they have legalized casinos, but other states have not. So it's a matter of state policy which varies from state to state depending upon the kind of government and the necessities and the prevailing circumstances and conditions.
Amandeep, do you need a license to start a gaming company?
Precisely, the whole discussion is about it. So there is no regulator, and hence you will not need license. The problem is that Sikkim, in fact, Nagaland has come up with a recent legislation, and Sikkim also has followed that bait where they have brought in a regime for licensing the online players. But when I looked at those legislations of Nagaland and Sikkim, what I realized that they are state legislations. So the underlying difficulty would be that, let's say, if I register myself under the Sikkim legislation for an online gaming activity, what will be the impact of it when somebody sitting in Delhi plays that game? How would the Sikkim government or the Nagaland government penalize me when I am outside their state jurisdiction or their territorial jurisdiction? So this online activities are not regulated is the point of discussion today. So there are in bits and circumstances, there are certain see, when there is no law in a particular sphere, that is the best point in time for people like you who are thinking to invest in it. Because there is no law, then there are a lot of loopholes which can be exploited. It is as good as saying that the 𝗿𝗺𝗃 scam when happened, then SEBI was a toothless tiger. SEBI did not had any authorities or powers to investigate into certain things, and because of which 𝗿𝗺𝗃 could single-handedly do such a big scam. So thereafter, when the 1992 scam was revealed and up to 1996, the investigations were done, there were so many amendments brought in the Companies Act, and SEBI was given with so much of powers that today, even if somebody has that kind of brain as Mr. Mehta did, he would not be able to generate that kind of money in such a short span of time. So a loophole in law can always be exploited, and that is what I have been saying, that yes, you can start, you will need some sort of licensing authority. You can get yourself registered in Sikkim by paying the licensing money, and then you can come up as an online platform. As I said, that somebody sitting in Delhi will play on that online platform, and Sikkim government would not be able to do anything because that person is beyond the territorial jurisdiction of Sikkim government, and Delhi has no law so far as this is concerned. Hence you're free, and this is what is precisely happening in all these online apps.
Amandeep has asked us, what is the name of the guidelines of Ministry of IT for advertising?
No, that's available on the ministry. I'll have to check. I don't remember the name.
Okay.
And if at all, you can also go on Advertising Standards Council of India. That also has on its website this guideline. Advertising Standards Council of India, ASCI.
So you're saying that, like, say something like match fixing also can be regulated?
No. I'm not saying.
I'm saying, like, for example, like
match.
Something.
See, again, we have come on that debate. Malum in se, malum in prohibitum. Match fixing is malum in se. There is no doubt that match fixing is not a right activity. There is no doubt obviously when the laws so far as gambling or online cricketing will come, they will say there are already code of conduct created by ICC and BCCI. There are IPL rules of moral conduct. There are so many guidelines already in existence by the regulators of cricket so far as match fixing is concerned, like for doping in other athletic activities. So match fixing, we are not talking about match fixing here. All we are saying is that if you don't regulate this gambling or betting which is happening in cricket, it may lead to certain unfortunate incidents like match fixing and all. So because unless you know who are the players involved into the betting or gambling of these games, how will you know that what is the authority or control they have on the cricketers? So for an example, I'm just giving an example, please don't take it otherwise. Let's say for A game, there is X team and Z is the captain of that team. And Z starts an online app which is involved in the betting of A game. Then don't you think that Z will be in absolute position to change the results of that match for his own benefits? So one needs to understand who are the players, and in order to understand and know who are the players involved in all these activities, regulation is essential.
To regulate it. If you regulate it, then what's the problem? Oh, because it's a human. Okay. So it's not simply based on like say you're playing
please
a particular game or something.
Please distinguish between prohibition and regulation. We are here not talking about prohibition. I am saying that it is practically impossible to prohibit these activities. Even if you come up with a statute tomorrow, it won't be prohibited. It has existed in the society for several thousands of years, and it will go on. Your Mahabharata, the sequel or the climax of Mahabharata is based on this. That the whole episode where Yudhishthir bets his brothers and then his wives and his kingdom and whatever, and then the war happens. So it has been deeply rooted, embedded in the society, these activities. They won't go. I am not talking about an absolute prohibition or an absolute ban. All I'm trying to argue here today is that if you know that there's a problem, and if you know that you cannot eradicate that problem, then you better regulate it. That's the whole argument.
Okay. Do we have any more questions? I'll just quickly see. Is Tambola a game of skill or game of chance?
I don't know what Tambola is. One will have to explain.
Tambola is, I think, that wo wala na number wala jo hota hai, housey. I think it's like housey, where you are.
I
88, like whatever numbers come, you match that and you get.
If it's like housey, then it's pure game of chance. What skill is involved if somebody picks up a square and says 18 or 21, and you will have to see in your cards whether you have 21. What skill is involved in that? It's definitely a game of chance.
So of course that cannot, like, again, people earn money through that.
That will, when the regulation comes, see the law. That's why I said that the Law Commission recommendations, they're very clear. They have categorized that game of chance have no way that they will be legalized in this country. But so far as gambling on games of skills, gambling by way of games of skill can be legalized and should be legalized.
Example of such a game like that, game of skill which can be gambled on?
See, the Supreme Court has said that Rummy has been debated time and again. In fact, your horse racing, the Supreme Court in Lakshmanan has said that it's a game of skill, because a person does a lot of research about his horse and which horse how it has been performing.
There's talent involved.
Yeah, and for Rummy, and the Rummy court have said that one needs to apply his mind to understand the sequence of the fall of cards and to remember which card has been thrown and what are the cards which are still left to be thrown, and accordingly a person decides his strategy as to what card he should throw. So it's a game of skill. Instead of saying that I have 3 cards, you have 3 cards, whoever has the biggest will take 1 lakh. So from the pack of cards, we pick 6 cards. I divide 3. I give 3 to Ashaawari. I take 3 myself, and then we like the blinds are played, and then these 6 cards are kept on the table, and one by one we flip our cards, and whoever has a bigger card takes away the money. So what skill is involved into it? It's merely a game of chance. So that kind of distinction needs to be brought in as to what is a game of chance and what is a game of skill.
Game of skill. Okay. Okay. All right. So do we have any other questions? If not, then we can close the session. Is it fine? Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Vikash, sir. It was very nice. Learned a lot of things. I hope it was very informative for everyone else also. We would love to have you on board again sometime soon. Yeah, have a very good day today. And yes, okay. I shall close the session now.
Thank you, Ashaawari.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm just ending the session.